What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I'm excited to be bringing you our latest modded build for Skyrim, and this one utilizes a bunch of mods that you may have not seen in previous FudgeMuppet builds. This is the Undead Corsair, undoubtedly inspired by the Pirates Lore video we recently made on the channel. Check it out if this build makes you curious, but where to begin with this one? There's a lot to say. The Undead Corsair made himself known along the shores of High Rock and the Iliac Bay as one of the greatest pirates of the era. His love for killing and pillaging is only rivaled by his love for rum and gold. He'll do just about anything for a purse of septims, and he's very materialistic. If he's going to get his cutlass dirty, he insists on doing it in style, giving any witnesses a hell of a tale to tell back in the tavern. If that wasn't enough, the Undead Corsair is also, well, undead. Yes, this infamous pirate turned to vampirism to enjoy his lifestyle forever and to let his name live on in immortality. So now he treats blood as a commodity as valuable as gold. He'll feast on his foes in battle to destroy their morale and satisfy his bloodthirst, and combined with his vampiric powers and skill with a blade, there's no use resisting. When the day is done and Skyrim is plundered, the Undead Corsair returns to his giant ship with its blood-red exterior, and in here he shows off his extravagant style. In order to give this build a fun playstyle and a distinct aesthetic, we've implemented a total of 8 mods. With the Oblivion Artifact Pack SE mod, we get his blood-leeching cutlass, Red Wave. This is the same cutlass you could get in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. With the Apache Divine Elegance Store mod, we get his Witcher-inspired Olgierd pirate robes, and with the Scarlet A Buildable Ship SE mod, we get, you guessed it, his epic ship. The last of the new additions is the Better Vampires mod, which totally overhauls the way you play vampires, giving you some awesome new powers and abilities, as well as some more lore-accurate disadvantages. With the Andromeda Unique Standing Stones of Skyrim mod, we get some fresh new Standing Stone powers, and the same goes for the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod, which makes each race feel quite different. The Alternate Start mod is great for roleplaying, allowing us to arrive in solitude as the backstory tells. And finally, the Ordinator perk overhaul is the ultimate mod for changing up the gameplay and adding some serious variety to the skill trees. Links to all of these mods, as well as timestamps for video navigation, can be found just below in the description. But with all of that said, let's get things started with the Undead Corsair's race, standing stone, and stats. The Undead Corsair is a Nord, which means he will start the game with 110 health, 85 magicka, 105 stamina, 0.75% health regen per second, 2.875% when it comes to magicka, 5.25% stamina regen per second, and 325 carry weight. His racial powers include Son of Skyrim, which gives him a resistance to frost, increased while the avatar power is active. The Purge gives him the ability to choose a race at levels 10, 20, and 30 to deal more damage to in combat. Warrior's Heart increases damage dealt when health is lowered, and finally Avatar is a power that can be used once a day to grant very fast magicka and stamina regen for a short time. To unlock the Avatar power, you must rediscover Skyrim's past by clearing 8 dungeons. The Corsair will use the Shadow Standing Stone, which gives him the following powers. Blur increases his movement speed by 20% in combat. This is awesome for a build like this whose movement speed will already be increased by vampiric gifts. Hide in Shadows makes his sneaking 20% more effective when near a wall or obstacle, and Shadow Step, which is unlockable, lets you expend 50 points of stamina at will to dash to a nearby target within 75 feet. As for stat spread, put 60% into health to keep us alive and 40% into stamina for power attacks, bashes, and the occasional sneak roll. Due to one-handed perks, stamina also increases our power attack damage. Don't worry about magicka, as though you'll be using magic-like abilities, they're all vampire powers we've chosen which don't heavily rely on your magicka. The Undead Corsair had a very simple childhood. He grew up in the heart of the City of Solitude, where he spent most of his days learning to read and write with his mother. His father was a successful merchant and a big name in the docks of Solitude, as well as every dock on the western edge of Tamriel. While the Corsair's days were full of work and education, his evenings were the very essence of tranquility. He would wander to the college grounds and perch himself on the wall overlooking the Sea of Ghosts. His mother would have had a heart attack if she saw him dangling his legs over the edge, where one mistake would see him plummet to a grisly death, but the Corsair wasn't stupid, and the risk was worth it to get the scenic view. Every evening he would watch the horizon in hopes of seeing his father return with more stories and more exotic gifts from the kingdoms of High Rock and beyond. With his father being a successful merchant, he knew all about extravagance. His father's ship had an unmistakable appearance. He had commissioned the best craftsmen in the province to make the sails. The sailcloth was made from the finest crimson linen, and in the sunlight his ship gleamed magnificently. When his ship came to the docks, customers came in droves, entranced by the glimmering sails. When enough years passed and the Corsair Corsair turned 10, his father took him on as an apprentice, and with his father's experienced crew, he learned the ropes, literally. And over the coming years, he grew his sea legs, and it wasn't long before he was an expert at sailing. He also learned all there is to know about becoming a successful merchant and a connoisseur of fine goods and materials. One summer afternoon, on the return trip from Anvil, there was a disturbance in the seas. A ship with patchwork brown sails seemed to be charging directly towards them. Through the spyglass, the Corsair could see these were no merchants. And it certainly wasn't a military vessel. They moved quickly to raise the anchor and lower the sails, but before they could gain any momentum and get away, the pirates were upon them. The boarding was carried out with unbelievable efficiency. Hooks latched onto the taffrails, and ropes carried pirates with scimitars latched to their sides onto their ship. Red Guards. They were overwhelmed instantly. The pirates slew the crew with animalistic ferocity until the Corsair and his father were forced to surrender. A plank lowered from the pirate ship to his father's vessel, and across it strode a Red Guard with a long braid and a thin moustache waxed on both sides into sharp points. The man wore lavish clothes, and the hilt of his scimitar was fitted with gemstones the Corsair had never seen. Without a moment's hesitation, the man unsheathed his blade and lopped his father's head from his shoulders. The Corsair burst into tears and screamed at the degenerate, but the pirate wasn't intimidated. He gripped the Corsair by the chin and stared into his eyes. The Corsair could smell the intoxicating perfumes coming from the man's moustache. The Red Guard captain, named Iskan, told him to unleash his anger on the deck of his ship with a mop. He laughed and slapped the Corsair in jovial flippancy. In that moment, the Corsair swore to himself that one day he would kill Iskan, and he would watch the life drain from his dark, soulless eyes. Over the coming years, the Corsair served his captors, and he was made to clean the ship far more often than was necessary, and often found himself with tears in his eyes and a crushing grip around the mop. Eventually, the pirates had broken him down, and he found himself feeling more and more helpless, but as even more time passed, more hardened and adapted to his new lifestyle. The wound of his lost parents slowly healed with each passing day, and also due to circumstance. The mind often tries to forget what it does not wish to remember. With his mental state forever changed, the Corsair found himself assimilating to the pirate lifestyle. A special place in the back of his head hated him for that, but he couldn't resign himself to a life of bitter resentment. It turns out that the Corsair knew how to sail almost as well as some of the pirates, and he proved quite useful in being the only member of the crew educated enough to read sophisticated letters. Sure, some of the pirates could read basic sentences, but none of them could read the vocabulary used by the most important of people. This soon became an invaluable skill to the gang, as they could track merchant trade routes by reading letters, schedules, ledgers, and noted instructions. By the time he was 20, the Corsair was Iskan's first mate. He was the right hand to the man he now respected almost as much as he hated. With his thirst for revenge simmering beneath the surface, kept in check from years of internalization, the Corsair embraced the pirate's life. He mastered the scimitar and the cutlass. He was a force to be reckoned with in the raiding parties, and he quickly learnt to outdrink the oldest and hardest members of the Red Guard crew. They often joked about the milk-skinned northerner putting them all to shame when it came to throwing back rum. As things progressed and the crew picked up new recruits, the Corsair soon became quite well loved in the ranks, and one rainy night in Stros Mackay, an ugly plot reared its head. The Corsair had told many of the lower-ranking crew members about Iskan's greed. He took the lion's share of every raid while never truly putting himself into danger to secure it. The Corsair, on the other hand, was always on the front lines, fighting alongside the lowest-ranking men. He was an incredibly convincing individual, and as the night came to an end, one word rang in each of their minds: mutiny. The following night, shadowed by two accomplices, the Corsair picked the lock to Iskan's quarters. When the captain awoke, his wrists were being secured behind his back by the two pirates, and the Corsair turned him around and lurched over him, examining the sharp edge of his dagger. The Corsair looked into Iskan's eyes, and for the first time in his life, he saw fear behind the dark pupils. Iskan must have known this day would come, yet he was powerless to stop it. The Corsair slid his blade across Iskan's throat. The crew awoke to the call of the first mate, and when they emerged from the hold, they saw the Corsair holding Iskan's severed head by the end of his braid. Each member hesitated, but soon a cheer erupted. The Corsair was the new captain. Over the coming years, this infamous crew with the patchwork sails rose to prominence and notoriety across the continent. The Red Guards with the Nord captain owned the waters of Glenumbra and Rivenspire. Pirates in the Iliac Bay and the Sea of Ghosts also feared the prospect of those brown motley sails appearing on the horizon. Eventually, the Corsair even grew comfortable in his role as such a successful successful captain and really started to embrace the fun of being overly cocky and materialistic, hoarding treasure and adorning himself in all kinds of decorations. He had a good eye for rare and valuable trinkets due to his time with his merchant father, and loved wearing expensive items across the continent. He also started to employ humor while dealing with his victims, and ensuring his reputation had him known not only as being dangerous, but also wild and rambunctious. But like all good things, they must come to an end, and his glory days came to a gradual halt. The Corsair came down with a persistent sickness. He was plagued by fits of coughing, and it was only getting worse. When his crew went on raids, he was forced to stay with the ship, slowly decaying in his quarters as he read over countless tomes in hopes of a cure. This disease was serious. He knew that if he didn't act, his men would soon turn on him as they had turned on Iskan. The pirate's lifestyle didn't lend a hand to the crippled and the sick. It killed liabilities and sent them down to the watery depths. The Corsair got one lead from his studies. Apparently there was a powerful bloodline of vampires back in his homeland of Skyrim, and their ranks were immortal, immune to disease. They lived forever, and this could save the Corsair's life. The Corsair handed the ship over to his first mate, promising them he would return to a life of piracy when he was back in good health. He knew plundering could wait until he was immortal, then he could start again, raiding and drinking until the world came to an end. So when we join the Undead Corsair, he will have just docked in Solitude. Be sure to choose the Arrived by Boat option from the alternate start mod. From here, the Corsair will make it his priority to seek out vampirism, with the main prize being the discovery of the Volkihar vampires. In order to get the information he needs, he can perhaps use his merchant pirate's tongue to pretend he wishes to hunt vampires, when in reality he plans to gain their powers for himself. His other goal will be to get himself a new ship. What kind of pirate would he be if he was stuck on land? So he will seek out the ship named the Scarlet after finding the note at Solitude's docks. After retrieving the note, the relevant quest will start automatically. The ship is colored in such a way that it reminds him of his father's crimson sails. The Undead Corsair loves riches. He loves to spend on extravagances, filling his ship with ornate furniture, getting his hands on every upgrade imaginable. He'll also seek out fancy clothing and jewelry to wear, which he can keep aboard his ship and wear out whenever he pleases. As a merchant's apprentice, the Corsair learned to haggle and persuade, while as a pirate he learned to swagger and coerce. As a result, he has the ultimate silver tongue and fancies himself capable of convincing anyone to see eye to eye with him on anything. He will always strive to make money no matter the means, and this plunderer is in no way above stealing. But more than stealing and being sneaky, he loves to dominate people in combat and get rich in the process. It's not as much fun if his victims don't know that it was in fact him who bested them. He likes leaving people with nothing but a memory of him in his decorated clothing, swinging around a cutlass. Some criminals wish to beat the system quietly, escaping without anyone being any the wiser, but that's not how it works for a pirate. Notoriety is a strength, and becoming the most famous pirate requires people telling stories of his deeds. He may leave one survivor to flee, spreading word of his actions, but once he has embraced the vampire's curse or gift, he will want most of his targets dead so that he can feed on their flesh and progress his vampire ranking. Vampire Lord form can be a handy bonus, but he uses it as a last resort. Vampire Lord form is hideous, and killing as a Vampire Lord does not take style or grace. Plus, the vampires look nothing like themselves when in the form, and he doesn't want people giving credit to other vampires. No, when the Undead Corsair strikes, his victims must know who attacked them. Even if we rarely use the form, do use it to get all the perks for it, as due to the mods, they will actually give us new powers in human form. He will live life quite risky. He's the kind of guy who drinks a ton of alcohol, starts a fight in the bar, and then goes out and steals some jewelry before recovering for the following day, where he will pillage and slaughter openly. As for factions, the Undead Corsair will of course join the Volkihar vampires in the Dawnguard DLC. This will help him gain immortality. Then he will also prioritize the Thieves Guild for the amount of money he can make. This will help him build up his pirate ship, which he will one day sail upon when he goes back to a life of constant piracy. Do note though that the Thieves Guild rules are a bit too subtle for his tastes, so he will often go above and beyond, breaking their honor codes carelessly and being violent where he is able to. He will join the Dark Brotherhood for even more money and for the thrill of the kill. Now, while he may become immortal and gain enough riches to build an awesome pirate ship, learning to be a powerful dragonborn during the main story will increase his powers and give him more incentive to stay on the lands of Skyrim for a bit longer than he first expected. That goes for the Dragonborn DLC too. There's plenty of places to loot up in Solstheim and lots of powerful things to learn. Even if he cares cares not for the Dragonborn cause. He sees potential in being able to use the Thumb out at sea. Imagine conjuring a storm above a distant ship, or blasting an entire crew into the sea with unrelenting force. Any pirate-related quests like Rise in the East, Lights Out, Nizir's Final Contract involving Safia, and the Deathbrand treasure hunt will suit him well, but as a general rule, if there's money to be made and fun to be had, the Undead Corsair is listening. Now that we know about the Undead Corsair's life story, his role-playing and his faction choices, let's see how that'll impact his skills, spells, perks, and his overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be one-handed smithing, speech, lockpicking, pickpocket, and sneak, so we've actually got 6 in total. But before we talk about his essential perks for these skills, let's quickly run over his spells, or powers really. Obviously the Corsair does not require magic or investment, but his Vampire Curse, combined with the Better Vampires mod, will give him an array of vampire powers to utilize in his human form. The first is called Unholy Grasp, and this works like a Vampiric Grip, only it can be used in regular non-lord form. Then there's Invoke Fog, which looks amazing and stops the effects of the sun for 10 minutes. Now as a vampire, you're not going to like the sun, so this is very helpful. This is definitely a power to use often when adventuring during the day. Deflect Light and Shadows turns you invisible, but allows you to continue attacking and interacting with the world without breaking it. This is very useful, but you won't use it too often, as it goes against the Undead Corsair's wish to be very noticeable when killing. The Mistwalker power allows you to turn into an insubstantial cloud of mist, giving you increased movement speed over land and water. Finally, the Blink attack is great for the opening kill, or for closing the distance on ranged foes. This allows you to instantly blink behind your current target, the one in your crosshairs, after which you can carry out a lightning fast attack before they can react. But with those cleared up, let's move on to the Undead Corsair's essential perks. A pirate is only as famous as his ability to kill. How else can they instill terror into the hearts of sailors and merchants across the seas? Fortunately, the Corsair is a master with the saber, the cutlass, the scimitar, and whatever else. If it has a sharp edge, the Undead Corsair will gut you with it. From the one-handed skill tree, take one-handed mastery 2 out of 2, furious strength, overrun, disciplined fighter, rogue's parry, clash of champions 3 out of 3, crosscut 2 out of 2, falling sword, windswept, into the dust, judgement, and wandering warrior. A big perk from this list is Rogue's Parry. This perk requires you to have nothing equipped in your left hand, but it is well worth the sacrifice. With this perk, attacking while your opponent is winding up their own attack or drawing their bow deals 40% more damage and delivers a critical strike, so timing will be important for the Undead Corsair to be his most effective. The tree starting with Clash of Champions will beef up your sword damage. Windswept is a cool addition as your sideways power attacks will fling targets backwards up to 6 feet, dealing up to 40% more damage depending on the distance traveled. Repeating standing power attacks will be very beneficial with Into the Dust, as each consecutive power attack with a sword does 15% more damage than the last, stacking up to 4 times before knocking the target off their feet. Finally, Wandering Warrior will give you a permanent boost of plus 1% to one-handed damage every time you get in a battle and successfully defeat at least 4 humanoids or animals in it. This maxes out at plus 20%. The Undead Corsair will become quite the handyman, and he can increase the damage of his sword by using smithing. From the smithing skill tree, go for 2 ranks of smithing mastery and then the arcane blacksmith perk. As we mentioned before, this man has all the experience needed to get whatever he wants without even needing to draw his weapon. Unfortunately for his enemies, he just loves drawing his weapon too much. He's a renowned pirate and the son of a merchant. He must be the most charismatic man on MODLIST. From the speech skill tree, grab speech mastery 2 out of 2, kinship, salesman, investor, fence, and trade prince. This will give him all the necessary tools to make lots and lots of money and establish a reliable economy to support his plundering. Foolhardy nobles may think their valuables are safe if they stow them away behind lock and key. How naive. The Undead Corsair didn't make such a name for himself by being dissuaded by a simple lockbox. No, the Corsair knows how to pick a lock. From the lockpicking skill tree, take lockpicking mastery 2 out of 2, Game of Fate, Robber's Eye, Nose for Treasure, Gone in 15 Seconds, Dungeoneer, Golden Touch, Treasure Hunter, Wax Key, Locksmith, and Seen This Before. Game of Fate emphasizes the importance of exploring in search of loot. With this perk, 5 Dragons of Fate appear in random locked containers across the world, and each grants gets 15,000 gold and a free perk point. This perk is a personal favorite, as it really increases the excitement associated with looting dungeons you may have visited before on previous playthroughs. Robber's Eye will illuminate a locked container for 120 seconds whenever you enter a dwelling you don't own. The goods inside will always be valuable. And with Nose for treasure, you can pick a specific type of loot, making that loot type 3 times more likely to be abundant in the illuminated container. With Dungeoneer, the benefits of Robber's Eye will encompass dungeons too, and with Seen This Before, you can become such an expert with locks that expert or lower locks are simply beneath you. They will open without a key or lockpicking, but don't worry about losing out on experience, because once you bypass 100 locks, you gain 2 free perk points to spend. In a similar vein to lockpicking, the Undead Corsair will use his dexterous fingers to remove purses and jewels from the pockets of wealthy victims. Where there is capital to be gained, a pirate has learned how to game the system. From the pickpocket skill tree, go for pickpocket mastery 2 out of 2, blood money, cut purse, on the run, lawless world, stalk the prey, and dragon horde. Blood money fits the Corsair's style perfectly. Whenever you kill someone in an especially violent fashion, the amount of gold on their corpse will be increased. Lawless world makes Skyrim the perfect place for a pirate, as petty crimes are actually slowly forgotten by the guards, allowing your high bounties for non-violent crimes to decay at a rate of 50% of your pickpocket skill level each day. Dragon Horde will give you an enticing new way to spend your hard-earned cash. If you sleep with 50,000 gold in your inventory, you may choose to spend it on a new perk point. This gives your money a good purpose even when you have purchased everything you could ever dream of and have everything you want on your ship. Finally, we have an essential piece of the puzzle. Yes, he's extravagant, yes, he's boisterous, but that doesn't mean he can't see the value in stealth when it is needed. Sneaking can provide the upper hand, and appearing from the shadows is a much better beginning to a story than waltzing into camp. When the survivors talk of the Undead Corsair, they must speak about him like a ghost, like a nightmare. From the sneak skill tree, take sneak mastery 2 out of 2, silent roll, sneak attack, problem solver, cloak and dagger, infiltrator right behind you, behind enemy lines, and shadow warrior. Problem solver makes sneak attack deal 10% more damage for each 200 points of health the target has for up to 50% more damage. With right behind you, sneaking is 15% more effective within 30 feet and 30% more effective within 15 feet. And with all of that taken into consideration, this is how the Undead Corsair will play in game. Stealth will be used sparingly, usually to get the jump on your enemies. The deflect light and shadow power helps this by turning you invisible. Also remember that during the daytime you'll be at a disadvantage, so you will often employ a vampire power called Invoke Fog to block sunlight. Other than that, you will power attack often with your one-handed weapon as you slash enemies to shreds, ensuring the other hand is kept free. This will take advantage of the rogue's parry perk we talked about, allowing you to dominate the battlefield through excellent timing. Mix this in with your range of vampire combat powers for ultimate chaos. A sensational choice for a power is called Unholy Grasp, allowing you to pull targets to you to slash them and then throw them around through the air after they've been impaled. You feel truly powerful using it. Now, if you do need to flee because you're caught or you're in a tight spot, use the Mist Walker power. This allows you to turn into a cloud of mist and zoom around quite fast over land or water, as I mentioned earlier. Don't forget to loot and plunder in the playstyle, selling goods for a handsome profit. You can also get rich killing people due to perks, so the more corpses left at the end, the more gold and blood you can extract from them, and the more successful you will become. As for gear, the Undead Corsair's unique aesthetic comes courtesy of the Apache Divine Elegance store mod. The Corsair will wear the DE Ornate Robe Black Armor, the DE All Geared Rings Armor, the DE All Geared Boots Armor, and the DE Earrings Cross Silver. Any other clothing from that mod which you think looks fancy enough for the Corsair can definitely be worn as well aboard the ship or in cities, but in combat we need slightly more protective gear. If you find an enchanted necklace filled with jewels, it would also be good to wear in addition. You can add a pirate hat if you'd like. There are options in the Immersive Armors mod if you have it, but we thought we looked better without one. We're just using Nord Preset 1 with full muscle and the haircut, color, and facial hair you see in the video, in case anyone was wondering on how to get started on that aesthetic. As for weapons, you'll want to keep any soul trap weapon you can find handy to use in tandem with the Black Star from Azura's quest, but that will be used only to recharge itself and your primary weapon, Red Wave. This cutlass comes from the Oblivion Artifact mod, and for longtime fans of the series, the weapon rings a bell. To get it, you can find it in a display case aboard the Red Wave ship docked in Solitude, and it can be upgraded to Legendary with a steel ingot and a human heart. In true vampiric fashion, this weapon absorbs 15 points of health per hit. And there you have it, guys, our latest Skyrim modded build, the Undead Corsair. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe for more modded builds just like this. Links to our social media accounts can be can be found in the description below, along with timestamps to help you locate specific sections of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.